The trading station looked like it was held together by hope and rust. Tae-Young Kim guided his ship through the docking bay with practiced ease, listening to the metal groan and protest around him. The wildflower wasn't pretty, but she flew, and that was all that mattered out here in the empty parts of space. He had come to refuel and maybe pick up some salvage contracts. Money was tight, and the fuel prices kept climbing. Humanity was still new to this whole galactic community thing, and that meant getting charged triple for everything. The older species liked to remind humans that they were barely past their first century in space. Young and stupid, they called it. Tae-Young didn't care much what they called it. He had his ship, his crew, and enough work to keep moving. That was enough. The station was quiet when he stepped out. A few traders moved through the corridors, their alien forms casting strange shadows under the flickering lights. Tae-Young had learned not to stare. There were hundreds of species out here, and most of them thought humans looked just as weird. He was heading toward the fuel depot when he saw them. Small creatures barely reaching his knee, with large, dark eyes and fur that shifted between gray and brown. They huddled together near a support column, and one of them was holding up a small device that blinked with a weak blue light. The creature stepped forward as Tae-Young approached. Its hands shook as it held up the translator device. "Please," the device spoke in flat, mechanical tones. "Please, we need help." Tae-Young stopped. He had heard plenty of beggars and con artists on stations like this, but something in those large eyes made him pause. These creatures looked terrified. "What kind of help?" he asked. The small creature looked back at its group, then faced Tae-Young again. "I am Pipli. We are Quelari. Our worlds are gone. Our people are dying. The Vraxians hunt us through space and no one will help." Tae-Young crouched down to be closer to eye level. Up close, he could see the Quelari were thin, too thin. Their fur was patchy in places, and they carried nothing but small bags, refugees. He had seen that look before, back on Earth during the Water Wars. "The Vraxians?" he asked. Pipoli's translator buzzed as the Quelari spoke quickly. "Big, strong, they came to our worlds and said we must serve or die. We could not serve. We ran, but they follow. They destroy our colony ships one by one. They say small species have no right to exist freely." The other Quelari remained silent, watching Tae-Young with those enormous eyes. He could see children among them, clinging to adults. "Why won't anyone help you?" Tae-Young asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "The Galactic Council says it is not their concern. The Vraxians are strong. We are weak. Mercenaries say the contract is suicide. 3 ships against a Vraxian battle group. No one fights Vraxians for money." Pipoli's voice dropped. "No one fights Vraxians at all." Tae-Young stood slowly, processing this. He had heard of the Vraxians. Big insectoid species that ran a military empire. Humans had been warned to stay out of their territory. The council considered them too powerful to challenge. "How many of you are left?" he asked. 12 colony ships? Maybe 3 million Quelari, familess children, old ones. We run through the Varan Nebula, but the Vraxians are faster. They will catch us in days." Behind Tae-Young, footsteps echoed. He turned to see Hana Choi, his engineer, walking up with a ration pack in her hand. She stopped when she saw the Quelari, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "Captain?" she asked. "These are Quelari," Tae-Young said. "They're running from Vraxians." Hana's eyes widened. She knew what that meant. Everyone knew. The Vraxians didn't take prisoners. They harvested resources, and to them, lesser species were just another resource. Pipoli looked up at Tae-Young. "We have little money. We can pay some. Not much. Not enough for what we ask. But we must ask anyway, because there is no one else." Tae-Young felt Hana's eyes on him. He knew what she was thinking. They couldn't fight Vraxians. The Wildflower was a salvage ship, not a warship. They had maybe 24 people in their small crew. It would be suicide, but those children. Those scared, starving children clinging to their parents. He thought about Earth. About the stories his grandfather told him. About when the strong preyed on the weak and everyone else looked away because it wasn't their problem. About how it took ordinary people saying enough to change anything. How many Vraxian ships are hunting you? He asked. Pipoli consulted a small device. 6 warships. Each one is 10 times the size of your ship. Where's your fleet now? Veron Nebula. Grid coordinates 338 to 442 Alpha. Tae-Yong looked at Hannah. She was shaking her head slightly, but he could see she was wavering. She had that look she got when she knew something was stupid, but also knew they were going to do it anyway. Captain, Hannah said quietly. We can't. It's impossible. Yeah, Tae-Yong agreed. Then he looked back at Pipoli. Point me at your problem. The Quelari went very still. The translator buzzed uncertainly, as if it had misheard. You will help? Pipoli asked. I'll help, Tae-Yong confirmed. But I'm going to need more ships. Give me 2 days to gather some people. Can your fleet last 2 more days? Pipoli's entire body seemed to sag with relief. Yes, 2 days we can manage. You will really come? I said I would. One of the other Quelari made a sound, a high-pitched keen that the translator didn't bother converting. Others took up the sound. Tae-Yong realized they were crying. No one has said yes, Pipoli whispered. We asked 37 ships. All said no. You are human. You are new. You do not know the galaxy yet? Why do you say yes? Tae-Yong thought about that. Because someone has to... Because you asked for help and I can give it? Because those are children and they deserve to grow up somewhere safe. He extended his hand. Pipoli looked at it, confused. Tae-Yong gently took the Quelari's small paw and shook it carefully. 2 days, he repeated. Stay here on the station. Stay hidden. I'll be back. As he and Hannah walked away, he could hear Hannah muttering, We're going to die. You know that, right? We're absolutely going to die. Maybe, Tae-Yong said. But we're going to try anyway. Who are you going to call? Tae-Yong smiled grimly. Everyone I know who's crazy enough to say yes. Behind them, the Quelari watched the strange human walk away. For the first time in months, Pipoli felt something that wasn't despair. It wasn't quite hope yet, but it was close enough. The human had said yes. After everyone else in the galaxy said no, the human had said yes. Pipoli didn't understand why, but right now, the why didn't matter. What mattered was that someone was finally going to fight for them. Maybe. Pipoli thought these humans were different from the other species. Maybe being new to the galaxy meant they hadn't learned to look away yet. Maybe that would be enough. Tae-Yong knew exactly who to call first. Commander Daewon Park had saved his life twice during the border conflicts, and Tae-Yong had returned the favor once. That kind of math meant something. The call went through after 3 attempts. Daewon's face appeared on the screen, older than Tae-Yong remembered, with new scars along his jaw. He was sitting in what looked like a security office, screens blinking behind him. Tae-Yong, Daewon said. You only call when you need something impossible. I need you to help me fight 6 Vraxian warships. Daewon didn't even blink. When? 2 days? Why? Because there are 3 million refugees who will die if we don't. Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Send me the coordinates. I'll bring what I can. The call ended. Hannah looked at Tae-Yang with raised eyebrows. That's it? You didn't even have to convince him? Daewon doesn't need convincing. He just needs to know it matters. Tae-Yang pulled up another contact. Now for the hard ones. Dr. Yuna Song was harder to reach. She was deep in research on some remote station, studying alien plant life or something equally peaceful. When her face finally appeared on screen, she looked annoyed. This better be important, Tae-Yang. I'm in the middle of... I need a combat medic and someone who understands alien biology. Yuna's annoyance shifted to curiosity. I haven't done combat medicine in 5 years. It's like riding a bike. I don't want to ride that particular bike again. Tae-Yang showed her the image Pipoli had given him. Quelari children huddled in a colony ship corridor, their eyes huge with fear. Vraxians are hunting them. No one else will help. Yuna stared at the image for a long time. Her jaw tightened. Children, yeah, I hate you. Does that mean you're coming? Send me the details. I'll pack my gear. She paused. If we're fighting Vraxians, I'll need to study their biology. They have weaknesses we can exploit. That's why I called you. The next call went to Viwu Kong. The young pilot answered immediately, her face brightening when she saw Taeyang. Captain! I heard you were doing boring salvage work now. I was. Now I'm doing something stupid instead. Wanton? How stupid? Vraxian Battle Group. 6 ships. Viwu whistled. That's extremely stupid. I love it. What do we get? Probably killed. What do we get if we somehow don't get killed? The knowledge that we saved 3 million innocent people. Jiwoo grinned. Good enough. I've been bored anyway. This hauling cargo thing is killing me. When do we leave? 2 days. Bring whatever you can fly. I've got a fighter and about 6 friends who are just as crazy as me. We'll be there. Minho Lee was even easier. The demolitions expert had been itching for action ever since he retired. He answered the call while eating noodles and nearly choked when Taeyang explained the situation. You're serious? Minho asked, coughing. Completely. We're going to blow up Vraxian ships? If we're lucky? I'm in. I'm so in. Do you know how boring civilian demolition is? I spent last week removing rocks. Rocks, Taeyang. This is exactly what I needed. Sujian was the youngest person Taeyang called. She had been a communications specialist in the Earth Defense Force, brilliant with computers and hacking. She was also barely 25 and had never seen real combat. Lieutenant An, Taeyang said when she answered. I have a job for you. She listened to his explanation without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for several seconds. Sir, I'm not military anymore. I work for a shipping company now. I know, but I need someone who can get into Vraxian systems. You're the best I know. Sir, what you're describing, the odds are terrible. Yes, we could all die. Yes, why are you doing this? Taeyang showed her the image of the Quelari children. Because they asked for help and everyone else said no? Suji looked at the image for a long time. My grandmother used to tell me stories about when our family ran from a war and no one would help us. She said the world only changed when someone decided to help even when it was hard. Is that a yes? That's a yes, sir. I'll be there. The last person Taeyang needed wasn't military. Bora Nam was a trader, the kind who knew people and places that didn't exist on official maps. She dealt in information and equipment that governments preferred not to. Acknowledged. She met him in person at a bar on the station. Bora was small and sharp-eyed, with gray streaking through her black hair. She listened to his request while drinking something that smelled like paint. Thinner, you want me to get you weapons that can hurt? Vraxian ships, she said. Flatly, yes. Do you know what the Vraxians do to people who arm their enemies? I can guess, then you know this is insane. Completely insane, Bora finished her drink. Why? Because there are refugees dying out there and we're the only ones who said we'd help. She studied him carefully. You're not doing this for money, no, or glory. No, you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Yes, Bora laughed, sharp and bitter. You're going to get yourself killed. She stood up. Give me one day. I'll get you what you need. Some old military-grade equipment, Vraxian weapon schematics, whatever I can find. Why are you helping? She paused at the door. Because someone should, and apparently that someone is us idiots. 2 days later, they gathered at the station. 3 small ships, barely military-grade. Taeyang's Wildflower, Day One's converted patrol cruiser Hammer, and a light frigate that Bora had somehow acquired called the Lucky Dragon. Jiwoo arrived with 6 fighter craft, flown by pilots who looked barely old enough to shave. Yuna brought medical supplies and several containers of equipment Taeyang didn't recognize. Minho arrived with enough explosives to crack a small moon. Suji brought a portable server farm and a smile that didn't quite hide her fear. They met in the Wildflower's cargo bay. The crew filled barely half the space. 28 humans total. Looking at each other and probably thinking the same thing. This was crazy. Pipoli and several other Quelari stood to the side, watching with those huge eyes. Day one stepped forward, his commander's presence filling the room despite his casual clothes. Most of you know me. For those who don't, I'm Day One Park. I've fought in the border conflicts and about a dozen smaller actions. I've seen bad odds before. He paused. These are worse. We're 3 ships and 6 fighters going against a Vraxian battle group. Each of their ships outguns us 10 to 1. They have better shields, better weapons, better everything. Several people shifted uncomfortably. But, Day One continued, they don't know we're coming. They think the Quelari are alone. They think no one is crazy enough to challenge them. That's our advantage. Surprise, and the fact that we're willing to do things they don't expect. Yuna spoke up. I've been studying Vraxian biology. Their exoskeletons are strong, but they have weaknesses. Specific frequencies can disrupt their nervous systems. I've modified some of our sonic equipment to exploit this. Minho grinned. And I've got enough explosives to make them regret being born. Giwu raised her hand. My pilots and I have been running attack simulations. We can't match them in firepower, but we can be faster and more unpredictable. Hit and run tactics, use the nebula for cover. Suji added quietly. I've been analyzing Vraxian communication protocols. If I can get close enough, I might be able to hack their systems. Blind them, confuse them, maybe even turn their own weapons against each other. Taeyang looked around at his crew. We're not doing this for money or glory. We're doing it because it's right. Because those people behind me asked for help and we said yes. That's all. One of the young pilots called out, what if we die? Then we die knowing we tried, Taeyang said simply. That's more than most can say. The room was quiet. Then Minho started laughing. Well, when you put it that way, how can we say no? The tension broke. People started talking, checking equipment, making plans. Pipoli approached Taeyang slowly. Why do you do this? The Quelari asked quietly. Your people barely know us. We have nothing to offer you. Taeyang knelt down. Where I come from, we have a saying. We don't leave people behind. Even strangers. Even when it's hard. Is this a human thing? Maybe, I don't know. But it's the right thing. Pipoli's translator buzzed softly. The galaxy will think you are fools. Taeyang smiled. Let them. We'll be the fools who saved 3 million lives. 2 hours later, the small fleet departed. 3 ships and 6 fighters heading into a nebula to face impossible odds, none of them expected to survive. But all of them were smiling. The Veron Nebula looked beautiful from a distance. Clouds of gas glowed in shades of purple and blue, lit by distant stars. Up close, it was a nightmare to navigate. The dense particles played havoc with sensors and communications. Perfect for hiding, terrible for fighting, the Quelari colony ships drifted through the nebula like wounded animals. 12 massive vessels, their hulls scarred from previous attacks, each one carrying hundreds of thousands of refugees. They moved slowly, conserving fuel, hoping the nebula would hide them long enough to escape. It hadn't worked. 6 Vraxian warships prowled through the clouds like sharks, their insectoid shapes bristling with weapons. They were in no hurry. They had found their prey. Now they were just deciding when to strike. Taeyang's small fleet emerged from a different section of the nebula, their sensors barely functioning in the interference. On the screen, the Vraxian ships looked impossibly large. Target analysis? Day One's voice crackled over the comm. Each Vraxian ship is approximately 1,200 meters long. Heavy armor, plasma weapons, and shielding that could stop a meteor storm. And we have 3 ships that are basically held together with tape, Hannah muttered from the engineering station. Good tape. Though, Minho added cheerfully from his position. Very strong tape. Taeyang studied the tactical display. The Vraxians were spread out in a search pattern, using their superior sensors to scan through the nebula. They were confident, moving slowly, not expecting any resistance. "Sugi," Taeyang called. "Can you intercept their communications?" "Already on it, Captain." Suji's fingers flew across her console. "They're coordinating their search? They think they'll have all the colony ships cornered within 6 hours. Let's make sure they don't get that chance." "Diwu, are your fighters ready?" "Born ready, Captain." Diwu's voice came through with barely suppressed excitement. "We've got full weapons and the element of surprise." "What's the plan?" Day one cut in. "We can't fight them head on. We need to use the nebula. Hit them fast, then disappear before they can target us properly. Make them think we're everywhere." Yuna spoke up from the medical bay. "Captain, I've loaded those sonic devices onto missiles. If we can get them close to Vraxian crew compartments, it should disrupt their nervous systems. Won't kill them, but they'll be too disoriented to fight effectively." "Good. Everyone listen up." Taeyang pulled up the tactical map and shared it across all ships. "We're going to split into 3 groups. Day 1, you take the hammer and 2 fighters hit the northern targets. Bora, you take the Lucky Dragon and 2 fighters hit the southern ones. I'll take the Wildflower and Jiwu's remaining fighters for the center." "That leaves 2 Vraxian ships per group," Bora noted. "Still terrible odds. Better than 6-on-1. We attack simultaneously, maximum chaos. Use the nebula clouds for cover. Hit their engines and sensors first. We're not trying to destroy them, just disable them long enough for the Quelari to escape. And if they adapt?" Day one asked, "Then we improvise?" A Vraxian transmission suddenly flooded all channels. The voice was harsh, clicking and buzzing even through the translator. "Attention unknown vessels. You are interfering with Vraxian Dominion operations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Taeyang opened a channel. "This is Captain Taeyang Kim of the human vessel Wildflower. These refugees are under our protection. Leave now and we won't have a problem?" The Vraxian response was almost amused. "Humans, we have heard of you. New species. Primitive technology. You have 3 small ships. We have 6 battle cruisers. Your threat is meaningless. Then you won't mind if we stay." There was a pause. Vraxian Dominion does not negotiate with food species. "Last warning. Withdraw or die." Taeyang closed the channel and smiled grimly. "All ships execute attack pattern. Show them what humans do when someone threatens innocent people." The small fleet split apart, vanishing into the nebula clouds. The Vraxians, confused by the sudden disappearance, began active scans. They were powerful ships, but the nebula limited even their advanced sensors. They never saw Jiwu's fighters coming. The first attack was devastating. 6 small fighters screamed out of a gas cloud at maximum speed, targeting the closest Vraxian ship's engine clusters. Missiles streaked through space, unisonic warheads mixed with conventional explosives. The Vraxian shields flickered as the weapons impacted. The sonic devices activated. Inside the Vraxian ship, crew members collapsed as the frequency attacked their nervous systems. Not deadly, but completely incapacitating. The ship's coordination fell apart before the other Vraxians could react. The Wildflower emerged from another cloud, all weapons firing. Taeyang targeted the sensor arrays, small concentrated bursts that overloaded the systems. The massive ship was tough, but precision strikes could still hurt it. "Direct hit," Hannah called out. "Their primary sensors are offline." The Vraxian ship fired back, huge plasma bolts that tore through space. But the Wildflower was already moving, diving back into the nebula clouds. The shots went wild, hitting nothing but gas. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Day one's hammer used the nebula as a shield, appearing just long enough to launch attacks before vanishing. His years of tactical experience showed, as he predicted, Vraxian response patterns and stayed one step ahead. Bora's Lucky Dragon was even more aggressive, dancing between 2 Vraxian ships and making them shoot at each other. Her traitor instincts knew all about playing enemies against one another, but the Vraxians were adapting. One of the battle cruisers changed tactics, firing blindly into the nebula clouds. The spray of plasma weapons didn't need to be accurate. When they could simply saturate an area, one of Jiwo's fighters took a glancing hit. The pilot ejected just before the craft exploded. "Rescue that pilot," Taeyang ordered. One of the other fighters broke off to grab the escape pod. The battle became a deadly game of hide and seek. The humans would strike, disable a system, then vanish before the Vraxians could respond effectively. But it was taking its toll. The small ships couldn't take many hits, and the Vraxians had started working together more efficiently. "Captain, we have a problem," Suji called out. "Two of the Vraxian ships are moving to flank the Quelari colony vessels. They're giving up on us and going for the easier targets," Taeyang cursed. That was smart. Why waste time fighting the annoying small ships when you could just go for the main target? "Jiwu, intercept those ships. Do not let them reach the colony fleet." "Captain, we can't stop two battle cruisers with fighters." "You don't have to stop them. Just slow them down." Jiwo's response was immediate. "On it. Come on, kids. Let's go be stupid." The fighters accelerated toward the approaching Vraxian ships. They were gnats attacking elephants, but gnats could still be annoying. They swarmed around the massive vessels, firing at weapon systems and sensor nodes. The Vraxians swatted at them, but the fighters were too fast and too unpredictable. Meanwhile, Minho had been very quiet. That was usually a bad sign. "Minho," Taeyang called. "What are you doing?" "Something fun, Captain. I need you to get me close to one of those ships." "Really close. How close?" "Boarding range. Day 1 cut in." "Are you insane? You can't board a Vraxian battlecruiser." "Watch me." Against all logic and common sense, Taeyang brought the Wildflower in close to one of the disabled Vraxian ships. Minho launched himself across the gap in a boarding pod, along with 3 other volunteers. They clamped onto the hull and began cutting through. Inside the Vraxian ship, the crew was still recovering from the sonic attack. Minho and his team moved quickly through the corridors, planting explosive charges on critical systems. The Vraxians who tried to stop them found that humans in close-quarters combat were terrifyingly aggressive. "Charges set," Minho reported, breathing hard. "Getting out now." The team evacuated just as the charges detonated. The Vraxian ship shuddered, internal explosions tearing through its engineering section. It went dark, power failing, dead in space. 1 down. 5 to go. The battle raged for 3 more hours. The humans lost a fighter and took serious damage to all 3 ships. But they had disabled 4 of the 6 Vraxian vessels. The remaining 2, damaged and unable to coordinate properly, began to withdraw. "They're running," one of the pilots shouted. "Let them go," Taeyang ordered. "Our job is to protect the Quelari, not chase Vraxians." The small fleet regrouped, battered but intact. Behind them, the 12 Quelari colony ships began to move, engines firing as they prepared to escape the nebula. Pipolius' voice came over the comm, shaking with emotion. "You did it. You actually did it. We are saved." Taeyang looked at his crew. Hannah was nursing a broken arm. Several people had minor injuries. The ships were running on emergency power. But they were alive, and the Quelari were safe. "Get those colony ships moving," Taeyang said. "We'll escort them to the edge of the nebula." As they began the slow journey out, Suji made a discovery. "Captain, the battle was being broadcast. The Vraxians recorded everything, and it got picked up by the Galactic Communication Network. So the entire galaxy just watched humans fight 6 Vraxian warships to protect refugees. The footage is spreading everywhere." Day 1 laughed tiredly. "Great, we're famous. Can we be famous somewhere with a medical bay and a hot meal?" But Taeyang understood what this meant. The galaxy had just learned something about humanity. The message arrived 3 days after the battle in the Veron Nebula. It was broadcast across all human channels, impossible to ignore, designed to be seen by everyone. The Vraxian High Command appeared on screens throughout human space. Their leader, a massive insectoid creature with armor-plated carapace, spoke in clicking, buzzing tones that the translator rendered into cold, emotionless words. Humanity has interfered with Vraxian Dominion operations. This is an act of war. As punishment and example, we will now demonstrate what happens to species who challenge us. We have selected the human colony world New Haven. It will be destroyed. Let this be a lesson to all who would stand against the Dominion. The transmission ended. Across human space, there was shocked silence. Then panic. New Haven was a frontier colony, established just 10 years ago. 50,000 people lived there, farming and mining and building a new life far from Earth. It was lightly defended, with only a small security force and outdated orbital platforms. It didn't stand a chance. Taeyang received the news while his fleet was escorting the Quillari to a safe zone. 3 weeks' journey from Vraxian space. He stared at the message, his blood running cold. They're going to kill 50,000 people because we saved the Quillari, Hana said quietly. Because we said yes. Day One's face appeared on the communication screen. Captain, we need to go. Now, New Haven is 4 days away at maximum speed. We're 5 days from delivering the Quillari to safety, Taeyang said. If we leave now, they're vulnerable. The terrible math hung in the air. 50,000 humans or 3 million Quillari. Save one group and abandon the other. There was no time to do both. Taeyang sat in his command chair, feeling the weight of impossible choices. This was what the Vraxians wanted. To make them choose. To prove that even humans had limits to what they would sacrifice for strangers. Pipoli's voice came over the comm, small and sad. Captain Taeyang, we understand. Go save your people. We will manage somehow. You won't, Taeyang said bluntly. Without escort, Vraxian patrols will find you within a week. Then that is our fate. You have already done more than anyone else would. We cannot ask you to let your own people die for us. Taeyang closed his eyes. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived wars by making impossible choices. She had told him that the hardest decisions were the ones where all options were bad, and you just had to choose the one you could live with. Could he live with abandoning New Haven? With letting 50,000 humans die because he chose to protect aliens instead? Could he live with abandoning the Quillari after promising to help them? The answer was no to both. So he needed a third option. Captain, Yuna said carefully. What are you thinking? Taeyang opened his eyes. I'm thinking we need to ask the Quillari a question. He opened a channel to all 12 colony ships. Pipoli's face appeared along with several other Quillari leaders. We saved you, Taeyang said. Now the Vraxians are going to attack my people because of it. I won't abandon you. But I also can't abandon my own people. So I'm going to ask you something and I need an honest answer. Will you help us? The Quillari looked at each other. Pipoli spoke carefully. Captain, we are not warriors. We have no weapons. Our ships are transports, not military vessels. What could we possibly do? You can fly. You can navigate. And you can stand with us when we face the Vraxians at New Haven. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to be there. To show the galaxy that we're in this together. One of the other Quillari leaders, an older one with gray in their fur, spoke up. You would risk your people to protect us? Why would we not risk ourselves to protect yours? Of course we will come. Pipoli made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. You saved us when no one else would. Now we save you. This is what allies do, yes? Yes, Taeyang said. That's exactly what allies do. The combined fleet turned toward New Haven, engines burning at maximum output. They had 4 days to cover 5 days' worth of distance. They pushed the ships beyond safety limits, riding the edge of catastrophic failure. They made it in 3.5 days. The ships were barely holding together, but they made it. New Haven hung in space ahead of them, a beautiful blue-green world with 2 small moons. And surrounding it was a Vraxian invasion fleet. 8 warships larger than the ones they had fought before. These weren't patrol vessels. These were dedicated military ships, built for one purpose: destruction. We're too late, Hannah whispered. They've already started orbital bombardment. Taeyang could see the signs. Fires on the surface, visible even from orbit. Cities burning. The Vraxians were making good on their threat. No, Day One said firmly. We're not too late. People are still alive down there. We can still save them. With 3 damaged ships and 6 fighters against 8 battlecruisers? Bora asked. I'm all for crazy plans, Captain, but this is suicide. Then we die trying, Taeyang said simply. All ships, combat formation. We're going in. The Vraxians detected them immediately. A transmission came through, the same cold voice from before. Humans, you are too late. Your colony burns. Withdraw, and we may spare your pathetic ships. Taeyang didn't bother responding. He just opened fire. The battle was chaos from the first second. The human ships, already damaged from the previous fight, struggled against the fresh Vraxian vessels. Jiwoo's fighters darted between the massive ships. But there were too many weapons, too many targets. One of the fighters exploded. Then another. Jiwoo's voice came through, tight with anger and grief. We're taking heavy losses, Captain. On the surface of New Haven, the colonists were fighting back with everything they had. Security forces used mining equipment as weapons. Farmers fired hunting rifles at Vraxian ground troops. It was hopeless, but they fought anyway because that's what humans did when cornered. The Vraxians were winning. Their troops were advancing through the cities, their ships controlling orbit. The human resistance was brave, but futile. Then the Quelari colony ships did something. Unexpected. All 12 massive vessels moved into position between the Vraxian fleet and New Haven. They had no weapons, no shields. They were just transport ships. But they were big, and there were 12 of them. What are they doing? Suji asked in horror. Peplia's voice came through the com. We are your shields, Captain Taeyang. Use us. No. Get out of there. You'll be destroyed. You stood for us when no one else would. Now we stand for you. This is what it means to be allies. The Vraxian ships opened fire on the colony ships. The Quelari vessels had no chance. Their hulls, designed for transport, not combat, began to tear apart. But they held position, refusing to move, creating a barrier between the Vraxians and the planet. Taeyang felt rage like he had never known. These creatures who had lost everything were sacrificing themselves for humans, for people they barely knew, because that's what allies did. All ships, he said, his voice cold and hard. The Quelari are buying us time with their lives. We don't waste it. Minho, is that crazy idea you mentioned earlier ready? You mean the one where we overload our reactor and ram it into their flagship? Minho asked. Yeah, it's ready. It's also completely insane. Do it. While Minho prepared the Wildflower's reactor for overload, Yuna had been working on something in the medical bay. She appeared on screen, looking exhausted but determined. Captain, I've modified the sonic weapons. This new version is much more powerful. If we can get it inside a Vraxian ship, it should incapacitate the entire crew. Maybe permanently. How do we get it inside? Yuna smiled grimly. We improvise. The plan came together quickly, born of desperation and fury. The hammer would draw the Vraxian flagship's attention. The remaining fighters would provide cover. The Wildflower, reactor overloading and set to explode, would ram the flagship. And Yuna would manually deliver her sonic weapon to the command deck. It was the worst plan any of them had ever heard. It would probably kill them all. They agreed to it without hesitation. Captain, Hannah said quietly, if we do this, we're not walking away. I know. The crew knows too. And they all voted to do it anyway. Taeyang looked at his crew. Young Suji, barely out of training. Cheerful Minho, who joked in the face of death. Brilliant Yuna, who had given up peace for war. Hannah, who had been with him from the beginning. Day One, the old soldier who had one more fight in him. Gefru and her pilots, brave and reckless. Bora, the trader who found something worth more than profit. It's been an honor, he said. They responded with nods and smiles and salutes. No speeches. No dramatics. Just humans doing what humans did best, standing together when it mattered most. The wildflower accelerated toward the Vraxian flagship, engines screaming, reactor building toward critical. Vraxian weapons tore at the hull, but they didn't stop. They couldn't stop. Too much momentum, too much determination. They hit the flagship at full speed. The explosion was visible from the surface of New Haven. It lit up the sky like a second sun, taking the Vraxian flagship and 2 nearby cruisers with it. Taeyong's last thought, before the reactor went critical, was that at least they had made it count. The remaining Vraxian ships, shocked by the kamikaze attack, hesitated. That hesitation cost them. Day 1 pressed the advantage, leading the surviving ships in a desperate assault. On the surface, the human colonists rallied, pushing back against the Vraxian ground forces. The battle turned. Slowly, painfully, but it turned. The Galactic Council chambers were built to impress. Massive halls of crystal and metal, seats for representatives from 300 species, all arranged in careful hierarchy based on power and influence. The strongest species sat closest to the center. The weakest sat in the outer rings, barely visible. Humanity's representatives sat in the outer ring. They were too new to matter, too weak to have a voice. That was before New Haven. Now, 3 months after the battle, things were different. Council Representative Yulin, a tall crystalline being who had led the council for 50 years, called the emergency session to order. The chamber fell silent. "We are here to discuss the human situation," Yulin announced. "The Vraxian Dominion has formally complained about human aggression. They claim humanity attacked their vessels unprovoked and destroyed 3 warships." The Vraxian representative stood, a massive insectoid in ceremonial armor. "Humanity is a dangerous species. They are violent, unpredictable, and refuse to respect galactic order. We demand sanctions. We demand reparations. We demand they be forbidden from interfering in Dominion affairs." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species nodded. The Vraxians were powerful. No one wanted to antagonize them. Then a small voice spoke up from the outer ring. "May I respond?" Everyone turned to look. It was not the human representative who spoke. It was Pipili, standing on a platform to be visible, representing the Quelari. "The Quelari are not council members," Yulin said dismissively. "You have no voice here." "Then I will speak anyway," Pipili said firmly. "Because someone must tell the truth." Before Yulin could object, dozens of other representatives from the outer ring stood. Species that the council usually ignored. Small species, weak species, species that everyone forgot about until they needed something. "We stand with the Quelari," one announced. "Let them speak." Yulin looked around the chamber, surprised. The outer rings never united. They never spoke up. But now, dozens of species were standing together, and more were rising by the second. "Very well," Yulin said carefully. "Speak, Quelari." Pipili took a breath. "The Vraxians say humans attacked them unprovoked. This is a lie. The Vraxians were hunting my people through space, killing us, destroying our ships. We asked the council for help. You said no. We asked every species we could find. All said no. It was not their problem. We were not worth the risk." Pipili's voice grew stronger. "Then we met humans. We expected them to say no like everyone else. But they did not. They said yes." 3 human ships faced 6 Vraxian battlecruisers to protect people they had never met. They risked everything for strangers. And when the Vraxians attacked the human world, New Haven, in revenge, my people stood with them. Because that is what allies do. The chamber was completely silent now. "You call humans dangerous," Pipili continued, looking at the Vraxian representative. "I call them brave. You call them violent. I call them protectors. You want them sanctioned for defending the weak. I say that is exactly what the galaxy needs more of." Another voice spoke up, this time from a reptilian species in the middle rings. "The Quelari are not the only ones watching. After New Haven, something changed. We have received reports from 17 different systems. Species that the Vrexians and others have oppressed are fighting back. The humans showed them it was possible to resist. A bird-like species added, "Our people were enslaved by the Korthax Collective for generations. We watched humans fight impossible odds and win. Last week we revolted. We are free now. Because humans proved it could be done." More voices joined in. Species after species, telling stories of resistance and rebellion inspired by what humanity had done. The galaxy was changing, and it was changing because humans had refused to look away. When someone needed help, the Vraxian representative was visibly agitated. "This is chaos. The humans are destroying the order of the galaxy." "What order?" Pipili demanded. "The order where the strong prey on the weak and everyone else pretends not to see? The order where asking for help is answered with silence? If humans are destroying that order, then good. It deserves to be destroyed." Yulin raised a crystalline hand for silence. "The Council will now discuss sanctions and reparations." "No," a firm voice said from the outer ring. It was the human representative, a woman named Haniel Park, cousin to Day One. She stood, and though she was in the outer ring, her voice carried through the entire chamber. "We will not accept sanctions. We will not pay reparations. We will not apologize for saving innocent lives." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No species in the outer rings ever refused a council directive. "You dare defy this council?" Yulin demanded. "I do," Haniel said calmly. "Because this council failed? You had the power to help the Quelari and you chose not to. You could have stopped the Vraxians and you chose not to. You chose order over justice, convenience over compassion. So yes, I defy you. And I will continue to defy you every time you choose to look away from suffering." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed footage from New Haven, Quelari colony ships positioning themselves as shields. Human ships ramming Vraxian vessels. Two species fighting together, dying together. "This is what humanity stands for," Haniel said. "We stand for the idea that everyone deserves protection. That the strong have a responsibility to defend the weak. That we don't abandon people just because helping them is hard. If that makes us dangerous to your order, then your order is the problem, not us." The chamber was in chaos now. Representatives were arguing, some supporting humanity, others demanding they be punished. The neat hierarchy of the council was breaking down, species from the outer rings speaking with the same authority as those in the center. Yulin tried to restore order, but it was too late. The galaxy had changed, and it had changed because humanity showed everyone that things could be different. Meanwhile, far from the council chambers, reconstruction was happening on New Haven. Human and Quelari workers labored side by side, rebuilding the cities that had been destroyed. The Quelari had decided to stay, making New Haven their new home. Day One Park had survived the battle, though just barely. He stood in what had once been the central square of New Haven's capital city, now just rubble and construction equipment. Next to him was Pipili watching Quelari children play with human children in the ruins. "Your cousin is making quite a speech at the council," Pipili said. "She learned from the best," Day One replied. Taeyang would be proud. They were silent for a moment, thinking about the captain who had started all of this by simply saying yes. "Do you think he knew?" Pipili asked. "What would happen? How many lives would change?" "No," Day One said. "He just saw people who needed help and decided to help them. That's all. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the simplest decisions." A young human girl approached them, holding a small plant in her hands. Next to her was a Quelari child, barely reaching the girl's shoulder. "Commander Park," the girl said. "We want to plant this in the memorial garden. For Captain Kim, is that okay?" Day One looked at the plant. It was a wildflower, bright yellow and resilient. The kind that grew anywhere, no matter how harsh the conditions. "That's perfect," he said quietly. They walked to the memorial garden together. A plot of land dedicated to those who had died defending New Haven. Names from a dozen species were engraved on the monument. Human and Quelari mixed together with no distinction. The children planted the wildflower in the center. right beneath Tae-Yang Kim's name. Why did he do it? The Quelari child asked. Why did he help us when he didn't have to? Because he could, Day One said. Because someone had to, and he was there. Back at the council chambers, the debate raged on. But the outcome was already decided. The galaxy had seen what happened when people stood together. They had seen humans fight impossible odds for strangers. They had seen the Quelari sacrifice themselves for their allies. You couldn't put that back in the box. You couldn't make people unsee it. 1 week later, the council issued its ruling. The Vraxian Dominion would be sanctioned for aggression against civilian populations. The humans would not face punishment. The Quelari would be granted full council membership, jumping directly from non-member to full status. Unprecedented in council history, but more importantly, 17 species announced they were forming a new alliance with humanity and the Quelari at its core. The Alliance of Free Peoples, they called it. An agreement to defend each other, to stand together against oppression, to never look away when someone needed help, the strong species scoffed. Such an alliance couldn't last. These were weak species, barely able to defend themselves individually. What could they accomplish together? They would find out. 6 months after the Battle of New Haven, the Vraxian Dominion attempted to reassert control over a mining colony they had previously dominated. They sent a battle group, expecting quick submission. They found themselves facing ships from 20 different species, led by human commanders using human tactics. The Vraxians retreated. 1 year later, the alliance had grown to 43 seas. They established a joint military, shared technology, and most importantly, a mutual defense pact. An attack on one was an attack on all. The galaxy's power structure was shifting. The old empires that had ruled through strength and fear found themselves challenged by unlikely coalitions of species they had dismissed as irrelevant.